He wasn't causing trouble, just a teenager shopping like everyone else in the mall. But the color of his skin turned ordinary moments into dangerous ones. In an instant, uniformed officers closed in, accusing him of a crime he didn't commit, treating him like a suspect before they even knew his name. What they didn't realize was that this so-called thief wasn't just any kid. The truth about who he really was would shake the entire mall and expose the ugly reality behind their actions. So what happens when power, prejudice, and identity collide? It started out like any other weekend afternoon. A young black teen strolled through the busy mall, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his mind focused on picking out a simple gift for his younger sister. The laughter of children echoed from the food court, neon lights flickered above crowded shops, and for a moment, everything felt normal. He wasn't thinking about danger or judgment, or the weight of stereotypes that too often followed kids who looked like him. To him, it was just another Saturday. But beneath the surface of this ordinary day, something was already shifting. What he didn't realize was that every step he took was carrying him closer to an encounter that would strip away that sense of normalcy and reveal just how quickly prejudice can turn innocence into accusation. The boy's steps slowed as he moved past the bright displays, his eyes scanning rows of sneakers and clothes he couldn't wait to show his sister. But as he lingered near one of the racks, he felt it, the weight of eyes on his back. At first, he brushed it off. Maybe it was nothing, maybe just another shopper passing by. But the feeling didn't fade. It sharpened. He turned slightly and caught the stare, a security guard, arms crossed, gaze fixed squarely on him. Moments later, 2 officers appeared from the far end of the mall. Their radios crackled and their pace quickened. Shoppers hardly noticed, too busy with bags and chatter, but the boy saw them closing in. His heart skipped. He hadn't done anything wrong, yet every instinct told him danger was near. "Stop right there!" one of them barked, loud enough for heads to turn. In seconds, people who hadn't even seen what happened were already whispering, pointing, stepping aside to let the officers through. The boy froze, confusion written across his face, but to the officers, hesitation was guilt. They grabbed him, pulling his backpack off his shoulders, rifling through it as if proof of his innocence didn't matter. Inside was nothing but notebooks, a half-eaten sandwich, and the neatly wrapped gift for his sister. Still, their hands tightened on his arms. Their voices rose. "Where's the stolen merchandise?" "Don't play games." The boy's throat went dry. He wanted to shout, to demand fairness, but fear locked his voice. The crowd began to swell around them. Strangers watching as if this were a spectacle, some filming on their phones. A few shook their heads, whispering disbelief, but most simply watched in silence. To them, he was just another headline waiting to happen. Every tug of his arm, every harsh word, carved deeper into his sense of helplessness. He wasn't just being accused, he was being branded, judged guilty without trial, without chance. The humiliation burned hotter than fear. In their eyes, he wasn't a kid. He was a threat. And yet the officers had no idea who they had cornered. To them, this was just routine, just another arrest. But within minutes, the truth would come crashing down, a truth that would not only expose their bias, but also shake the very foundation of their authority. Because this teenager wasn't just anybody. He was someone they should have known better than to target. And when the reality of who he really was came to light, the entire mall would fall into stunned silence. The boy's wrists ached as the cold steel cuffs clicked shut, the officers pulling him forward as if he were already guilty. His chest tightened, each step dragging him deeper into humiliation. The crowd grew louder, phones raised, whispers cutting like blades. He wanted to scream, "I didn't do anything!" But the words stuck in his throat, strangled by fear. One officer shoved the backpack toward his face. "Where's the stolen item?" Don't lie. The boy's heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst. His mind raced through every story he had heard. Black teens treated as suspects, dignity stripped, futures stolen in a single moment of prejudice. Now it was happening to him. The gift for his sister tumbled from the bag, hitting the floor with a soft thud. A box wrapped in colorful paper. The officer sneered, unconvinced. The boy's eyes stung as he watched the one thing meant to bring joy reduced to evidence of a crime that never existed. Laughter from a bystander echoed in his ears. Shame burned hotter than fear. And then a voice broke through the chaos. Firm, commanding, familiar to every officer in that building. "What's going on here?" The crowd shifted, parting like water. The police captain himself stood at the edge of the scene, his gaze locked on the boy. Silence fell. The officers stiffened, their grip faltering. The captain's eyes narrowed, scanning the cuffs, the backpack on the floor, and finally, the trembling face of the teen. His son. In that instant, the mall seemed to stop breathing. The officers' expressions drained of color. The bystanders lowered their phones, sensing the weight of what was about to unfold. Because this wasn't just another arrest. This was the moment the truth exploded in front of everyone, and nothing, for those officers, would ever be the same again. The captain's voice cut through the tension, sharp and unyielding. In front of dozens of witnesses, he ordered the cuffs removed. The officers fumbled, suddenly unsure of themselves, their authority slipping away as quickly as it had been abused. The boy's wrists were free, but the damage was already done. The sting of metal remained, not just on his skin, but deep in his spirit. He picked up the gift from the floor, its wrapping torn, its meaning forever changed. What was meant to be a simple act of love for his sister had turned into a public display of suspicion, humiliation, and fear. Even with his father's presence shielding him now, he couldn't escape the truth of what had just happened. Without that connection, he might have left the mall in a police car instead of walking out on his own 2 feet. The crowd dispersed slowly, but the whispers lingered. Some left shaken, others indifferent. But the boy knew this wasn't just about him. It was about every young black person who has been judged before they could speak, accused before they could breathe, treated as guilty before proven innocent. His story had a powerful protector, but so many others don't. And that is the chilling reality. Racism doesn't ask for proof. It doesn't pause to question. It acts, it wounds, and too often it destroys. So the question remains, how many more innocent lives will be scarred by prejudice before we decide enough is enough?